Good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson Knight. Of course, I'm sitting down with the cubby with the mostest, Techy Joe. How you doing, darling?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you this evening?
A little tired, but that's because our heat, the temperature outside thinks that it needs to two backflips off the top of my head.
I know, right? Hey, Brenda.
So, tonight we're talking about something interesting. And there's a new Hulu documentary on this case. We followed this case a lot, and that was the Ruby Frankie case. I thought the documentary was interesting, but they really forgot some key pieces. What did you think, baby?
Okay, so we're talking about Devil in the Family, the Follow Ruby Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you don't want to go any further, but you really want to get a good handle on the whole thing, not the best handle. There's some hot takes to be made, but a good handle. And answer, like, at least provide an answer to all the questions you would have, because you sit here and you try to read the articles, and that's the problem. Like, and even when we've covered this on the shows in the past, it's like there's so many remaining questions. Like, how the hell how the hell does that and it like really ties up some loose ends. I will say that it does tie up loose ends.
It does tie up loose ends. It does address some things, but I also think that there's a lot of it, that was left on the cutting room floor. Like, they don't go into the new lawsuit. They don't go into the church knowing about this woman. All about her.
Yeah, and I think there's some issues there as well. Like, there's some good reasons why it doesn't. Because I think I want to look that up real quick to be sure, because it looks like the documentary stops, like the interviews look like they take place like within a couple months of the trial, like, and the convictions, and then it looks like the storyline stops just a little after that, as in the information they have and what they're presenting, and that kind of thing. So I wanted to see real quick what I wanted to look it up and see. There it is. Like, where, like, timeline wise, is it that they're missing information? Is it that they like tried to do this too tight? It's kind of the feeling I like, especially where it ends with Kevin Frankie. I feel like that's what happened. Like, this is still way too early to be asking him the kind of questions that they're asking. Like, I know, like, part of this is wanting to get that raw emotional vulnerability, and that's what sells and makes documentaries and news interesting. I think this was a little too soon, because some of the questions they're asking him, and that's just, I know, jump all the way to the end. But some of the questions they're asking him at the end are like, judgmentally, I don't think he was prepared. Prepared's the wrong word. I don't think he was far enough in, like, the grief and frustration and anger and emotional turmoil and everything else, to really be asked something the way he was asked. It was more like the kind of questions you would ask someone, like, a couple of years later, a few years later, several years later. And his answers, they're very, in a sense, shocking.
But I would like to see some scenes I would like to see is them talking to the apostle that started all this. Started all this back in 2000 at the conference and said, take to the internet, testimony to the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Bring that to the page. Bring that to the opening.
Yeah, I was looking to see. I'm not seeing when they did the interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And that just may be what I can't find.
Right.
Because it almost feels like they did all the interviews and got access to all of her, because it's a combination docuseries.
Right.
Because you actually have the interviews, and that's
Mhm.
what their production team or their filmography team brings to the docuseries. And then they were given access to like 1,000 hours worth of unused video
Footage.
content.
Right.
Which a lot of that is the stuff that she cut out because she was like yelling at the kids, because the kids weren't cooperating, because the kids were expressing frustration, because the kids were just like, Mom, you're on another fucking planet.
Exactly.
And when I say that, it's not that the kids are saying that, it's just that she's trying to elicit like good content.
Right.
And the kids are just like pretty inarticulate because they're kids,
right,
but pretty clear on the concept that like that's not what's happening right now.
Right.
Like you want us to pretend like that's what's occurring.
Right.
We got drugged to this place just so you could make content.
Right. Or, we're being kids and you're mad because we're trying to get ready for church. And, you get to really see the two faces of Ruby Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they forgot the niece that warmed them years ago.
Hey, Devin. Yeah, now there's another, there's a Dateline, I think it's Dateline 2020, something like that, that did an interview, and it's almost exclusively with the niece of Jody Hildebrandt.
Right.
And that one is actually, so now we're talking about a separate series, but I do want to say, that one really challenges how much of this was Jody and how much of this was Ruby under Jody's influence versus just being Ruby and Jody, the Bonnie and Clyde of child abuse. The two horrible people met up and slammed into each other and threw, mass chaos. Which, I mean, that series or that episode, I don't know if it's a series yet or not. If it is, I'll look forward to more episodes. But that's what I inadvertently watched first. That one gets really into like the total similarities between how Jody Hildebrandt had treated her niece. And like if you could line it up with what happened almost verbatim to Chad, the oldest son of Ruby and Kevin Frankie, what happened to Chad Frankie, it just like Answei builds an empire. It's identical.
Right.
And that's what she keeps pointing out. And it's one of those moments where you kind of want to doubt her.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's convenient. But there's police reports where she alleges this. There are, psych notes where she's, or I think they're psych notes, but where she's alleged this. There's just over and over and over all these things where she had already, or I believe excuse me, I'm so sorry, because they use they, them, where they had come forward, and it's literally everything they said that Jody Hildebrandt did to them years before.
Right.
And so, like, it's that moment that I don't know, maybe watching them in that order, it was just like going down a checklist with like everything Chad said. And then you morph over to the, and I will say, I do appreciate the docuseries does not use the younger kids' names. Thank you so much. But the youngest son, then it basically moves into, and that was the rest of Jody Hillbrandt's niece's experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it's literally you follow along Chad. God, I keep wanting to say Daybell by mistake. You keep following along Chad Frankie and his story, and then he thankfully, gets out.
Right.
And I use that in air quotes because that's not really what happened.
Right.
He, like, literally no one got out until the youngest son went to the Jody Hildebrandt's neighbor's door, rang the doorbell, and blew the powder keg wide open.
Right.
That's honestly when everyone got out of the situation.
Right.
The nightmare that it was, because there's so many things going on that it's like, okay, well, yeah, Kevin's living on his own, and Sherry's living on her own. The oldest Jesus Christ, I'm gonna say Daybell today.
Yes, you are, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But
Ruby, Frankie, Sherry Frankie has gone to college. I will say, technically, she is probably the only one that got out before that day.
Right, and I think that it was more so that she wasn't buying it. You know, she's in that, let me Google the hell out of this and make sure that I have the opinion. And who is this woman? And what are they doing? And it's like, oh.
Well, I think she was the first one that was kind of in the Goldilocks zone, I guess you could call it.
Right.
That on one hand, she's doubting and questioning and being like, I don't think this sounds right.
Right.
But at the same time, was also not head on confronting, arguing, fighting, resisting. So stayed out of like Ruby and Jody's crosshairs, lack of any better word. Stayed out of their line of sight in terms of drawing attention and getting the same treatment as her brother did.
Right.
Because that's ultimately his, like, he more so wasn't, he was inarticulately struggling. Like there was something wrong. He didn't know what was wrong. And like, so, you know, when his parents brought in Jody Hildebrandt and she's telling him what's wrong, he's like, oh, okay. You know, you say that, my mom and dad agree. Okay, that I'm the problem. It's me.
Right.
Is kind of how that went. But
which is kind of the story of a lot of teenage boys, teenage men put into therapy.
And let's point out the whole 7 months sleeping on a beanbag chair.
Right.
And, you know, the whole blow up was some detentions. I think got kicked out of school. You know, and when you kind of think through the situation, how strict this is all getting, I'm kind of sitting there going, he doesn't sound that far off of any other teenager in that situation.
Yeah, I don't think
you know what I mean? Like, he's not out of control.
No, I think he was making out with some girls.
Yeah, he was making out with some girls, had watched some pornography, and was getting detentions and written up at school, and I think did get kicked out at one point.
No, I don't think he did.
I want to say that's what the docuseries, what he said.
Right.
If he hadn't been kicked out, he was about to.
Right.
Like right before they went to Jody, because I know that his next thing after they introduced Jody was like the only other thing they knew to do with him if he didn't get his shit together was we're sending you to military school.
Well, no, that was the threat from Jody after they brought him back from Anastasia. He comes back home and, he still isn't knee scraping and bearing. It was, fine. Well, and, he blew the channel up by letting the people know, their fans know, I didn't get a new bedroom. I've been sleeping on a beanbag chair.
Well, yeah, he said you took away my bedroom for 7 months. And there's that moment where you watch her face just contort with like, they don't know that. Like, like you can see the smoke just like blowing. Like, why did you say that?
Exactly. And that really blew up their channel. And what I mean by blew up their channels, they had like 1 million and 2 subscribers, which, by the way, like, share, and subscribe.
Not even the most important part. Not even the most important part. They had brand deals. They were already doing brand deals. Like, and that was the interesting point for when like Sherry starts talking about.
Right.
Like, we started doing brand deals and this just all got so fake. And she's like, it felt so fake. And that's when I started to go, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? We've replaced all the light bulbs in the house with these, really bright white bulbs so that we can film anywhere in the house and it's going to be good for YouTube. And she's like, I think she was the one that said that it felt like living in a commercial.
Right.
And so my first thought was kind of that like the Truman Show experience, where there's that same kind of moment where, like, Truman's wife keeps showing off product and doing all the product spots, and he's like, who are you talking to?
Right.
Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's like the same kind of clue-in moment of something isn't right here.
Right.
Like, why are you trying to sell me a product right now?
Right.
This is ridiculous.
Right.
Like,
and
stop.
Right. And, I don't know. Like, my bat signals go off later on. Like, I don't know. If you tell me, you come home one day and say, we need to have an in-home separation, and, you're not allowed to come into the kitchen if I'm in the kitchen. You're not allowed to go to the office. You're not allowed to do that. I'm going to look and go, fuck you. Get out.
Well, I mean, that might be a little easier in a McMansion in Utah, because that house is pretty big.
Right.
Versus, and then ultimately that turned into an out-of-house separation.
Right.
Because like the same day she threw out her oldest son, she threw out her husband,
right,
and then it was like, I don't know, like, and immediately told Sherry that she's not supposed to have contact with her father, not supposed to have contact with her brother, and that they've left the house for whatever. And I can't imagine being like, I'm assuming like 18, 19, 20 years old and getting that text message from a parent without going, and I don't care how religious you are, your first thought is not what the fudge, it's what the fuck is going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then it's like, but I'm not allowed to talk to anyone and you won't talk to me.
Right.
And yeah, like, okay, what am I supposed to think? And then the neighbors start calling her like, yeah, your siblings are totally getting left here alone.
which, they tried to make it about the neighborhood having to look perfect. I'm like, bullshit. Like, sell me something different. That is an HOA under control. That is not, there's social pressure to be in this group and clan. That's another issue. But anyhow, I am like, like I couldn't follow that piece of the story. Like that, whatever they tried to sell there was just wrong.
In terms of the docuseries?
Yeah.
That was the former colleague / underling / fellow low-key victim of Jody Hildebrandt in her practice, who was trying to, as delicately as possible, and I thought this was a really important part of the docuseries, was explaining that the whole reason that Ruby is doing this is because in her mind and in her community, she's been raised that the best thing that she can do is be the perfect mother. That's the role as a woman. And that, the best thing that she can do in service of her religion is to show how amazing and wonderful life is for families inside the religion. So the Church of Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church. So she, and it just suddenly clicked that it's like, this is like a large part of like the mommy blog core. That this is why they're here, that this is what they're doing. And it's the same people because, oh my God, the parallels. To like LuLaRoe and all the stuff that was going on there.
Well, and that whole batch of Kool-Aid.
Yeah, that's a whole separate. That's a whole separate Kool-Aid flavor. But at the same time, there's a lot of the same like push to be, it's sort of like your upline telling your downline. That the religion itself and the people within it are self-communicating this same idea of go out and show the world how amazing it is. And, sell. And it's like, so literally your whole damn life is nothing but a multi-level marketing / pyramid scheme. Of, constantly, at least in this, aspect, of selling. That, this is the perfect lifestyle for you. This is what you need to do. You need to be part of the church. You need to do this. You need to do that. Sell it. We're amazing. This is great. Glory to God. Blah, 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 blah. And this is what you're supposed to do. And this is how I really think that there's kind of, that's the conversation. So if someone is struggling, I don't think they're showing that. Because they're ultimately being told, you're struggling. It's because you're bad. You're bad. You're a bad mom. You're a bad wife. You're a bad. And so in that kind of mindset, I can understand that, and the point that the therapist was trying to make is there's such a push in that community for perfectionism that it begins to become, and he used the word bubble or box. I think he used both. And I think that what I would have more so said is it becomes a pressure cooker.
It does.
Is that you're not allowed to have a problem or it's your fucking fault.
Exactly. Now let's take a break real fast and we'll be right back.
All right. Well, maybe.
Love diving into metaphysical topics, psychic insights, and lively discussions? Now you can help keep the conversation going. By becoming a Patreon supporter of The Psychic Coffee Shop, you'll gain access to exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and special perks just for our patrons. Join our community and ensure that your favorite psychic show continues to thrive. Your support helps us bring more enlightening episodes, special guests, and deep dives into the world of the unseen. Become a patron today and enjoy a cup of wisdom with us every week. Click the link to join the baristas and unlock exclusive content. Thank you for your support.
Unlock your full potential with Aeson Knight's life coaching. Are you ready to take control of your life and manifest the future you deserve? Aeson Knight, a seasoned life coach and master psychic, is here to guide you on a transformative journey. Whether you're navigating personal challenges, career transitions, or seeking spiritual growth, Aeson's life coaching services offer tailored guidance to help you achieve your goals. With Aeson by your side, you'll discover the tools to overcome obstacles, embrace your true self, and create a life filled with purpose and fulfillment. His unique blend of spiritual insight and practical coaching empowers you to turn your dreams into reality. Ready to make a change? Book your session today and start your journey to a more empowered, balanced, and joyful life with Aeson Knight. Click the link to schedule your first session and step into your power. Are you ready for an election?
All right, welcome back. Sorry, yes, we had to take we're going to be taking a few breaks this evening. That's not going to be our issue. We're just taking mini breaks. Yeah. All right, so let's dive into this because there's other aspects here that, first we are looking at the mommy blogger culture of the Mormons, which, we stepped out of here recently. And what I mean by that is like the planner community, most of them are mommy bloggers.
Yeah.
The Mormon mommy visionary,
because that's actually literally one of the like branches of 8 Passengers, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Was like her whole organization and like, how do you manage a family of 8 people? Seemed like there were some pieces on that.
Right.
Very, very like tiny slivers of the docuseries. Right. But I kind of remember or think I do that like there was it seemed like for a while she was struggling to like figure out where her niche was.
Exactly. And that happens a lot. So, but we see this out of the Mormon community. We see this out of the Jehovah's Witness community. They use it as a way of ministry or a way of witnessing, which I find issues with. That stirred up more controversy. And yes, I'm a life coach. I get the bitch about this. Which was the Jody Hildebrand situation of being a life coach, being a therapist, losing her therapist license, and then working as a life coach under her own brand, Connections X, with an X. And that is like way too intensive.
Well, and literally having her license suspension being the moment that she's like, oh, okay, well, I'll go do this life coaching seminar thing.
Right.
That's the other part of it is the seminar aspect.
Right.
But then I'm going to still privately sort of see clients.
Yeah.
And just not tell them.
Right. Not tell them that I lost.
Like, I'm going to move them over to life coaching. And continue our therapy.
Right.
The thing I'm not supposed to be doing.
Right. And let's be very clear. Psychic readings are not therapy.
No, they are not, and they should
not.
Life
coaching is not therapy.
No. They don't, like, they may cross issues, but not, like, it's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. It's very much not the same thing. It's very much not the situation. It's like both.
Like, the emergency room is not your primary care physician.
Exactly.
You know, like that's not
Right.
like, and I know that technically stays within the medical like same genre, but it's like no. Those are two vastly different things.
Right.
And the level, like what an emergency room is built for and what it does and how it's meant to work, really isn't geared towards efficient at, or frankly able to handle in most cases what your primary care physician does. So if you're trying to substitute them for each other,
it doesn't work that way.
You do it at your own.
But it's even worse than that. It's like Walmart's is not your doctor. WebMD is not your doctor.
No.
You know, and you know, that's something I wish they had made more clear. Is like this, like she was still violating the law when she switched up and became a life coach because she lost her MS.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other part, because I bring up the fact because it was telling, and I don't think it had really necessarily come to light or been had attention drawn to it, was when I say she was still doing therapy sessions up until she was arrested. Ruby Frankie's oldest son, Chad, was still seeing her once a week.
Yep.
For the same stuff, for this in the same context,
right,
as he had been seeing before then.
Right.
Like there was no shift in what he was doing, just a change in names.
Right.
Like, you know, I'm now seeing you through this, you know, business.
Right.
And that I think the most I want to say egregious, but it's not even that really. Part of her, like, just disdain,
right,
for any kind of censure or being told, I don't know what the hell you're doing. But in the next 18 months, your license is suspended. You're not supposed to be doing it.
Right.
Like, so get it together.
Right.
You know, and we'll talk in 18 months. Whole time she's just doing whatever she wants to. That part was wild to me because I'm just sitting there like, wait, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you've been, like, he's been seeing her this whole time. Kevin Frankie, who is out of the house and has not had contact with his wife for a year, he is still being brought into these men groups meeting on mute.
Right.
And ripped apart by Jody Hildebrandt. Every single opportunity that occurs.
Right.
Like the level of control over that family, it's one of those things. It's like you first process it as, well, you know, Ruby threw him out, disowned her. Okay, well, what happened? And it's like, just because they were not in contact and directly, I mean, Sherry was and tried to the best of her ability to do what she could, but her oldest son and her husband are just, they're still locked in. They're still, and I do love and appreciate the fact that he point blank said from the beginning, this is a cult.
Right.
And I like that. That is the best way to describe Connections.
Right.
Is it was a cult. You do not question Jody Hildebrandt. Jody Hildebrandt is very charismatic and shows up as the person who has the answer to your problem. And I'm going to tell you how. Right. And is the sad part. And I have to say this with some surgical precision. On one hand, she has all the skill and ability to pull people in and go with it.
Right.
Just do it. Like, I'm going to call you on your bullshit. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to make you,
Right.
participate. I'm going to bring you in. I'm going to get your buy-in. I'm going to get you to where I want you to go.
Right.
On one hand, great therapist. Like, that's what you want. A lot of therapists really struggle to connect with clients at that level.
Right.
Then there's the other side of it, which is, and everything I'm going to do to you is wrong, horrible, abusive, like everything you do not want a therapist to do to you.
Right. But she does it. And, and what was $33,000 a month she was doing it.
Oh, yeah. Like, she's like the money.
Yeah.
She's the money. But that's also another thing with like the mommy blogger community, with the YouTube thing. Is, and we've seen that with like Daddy of Five,
the Ace family.
It's somewhere it turns into being just all about the content, all about the money, all about the views, all about the brand deals. And I get that on a level that, like, you started and it was kind of intoxicating to like, get community support and get told you're doing a great job and get told your kids are cute and funny and just, oh my God.
Right.
And that, whatever you're doing works. I get that part's intoxicating. And I think that's where some of it starts. But I also think that's the point where they start to abandon like their kids.
Well, not only that, but I think that's where they abandon the real content, in my opinion.
Well, it's the point where they abandon reality, and then the kids they're not parenting anymore.
No,
they just stop. It's like the parent switch goes off and the content creator switch goes on.
Right.
And everything's through that, lens of what would make good content, what's going to get me more views, what's going to get me a brand deal.
Right.
And it's like, it's just so sad that it's like, where did this break in your brain that, like, you're a parent?
Well, I think it breaks their brain when they bring in, like,
I mean, the money's great.
$100,000 in a month, and
get out of debt, and you don't have to worry, and things are taken care of, and I get that part, and I understand the push to keep going. Right. I'm just saying, at what point does your brain switch off the parent switch and just stop realizing that these are children? These are your kids. I don't care if you're, trying to be funny or prank someone or whatever. Right. But, like, these are your children. What the hell are you doing?
Well, not only that, but, like, why are these people watching? It's like, here, there's a number of YouTube stars that I am like, why the hell are you still on YouTube? How the hell do you still have viewers? Robbie Christie, for one, who doesn't do makeup anymore. She used to be a makeup YouTuber. She doesn't do makeup anymore. She even said in her YouTube she's lost her spark of makeup. Then get off your channel. It's like us replacing this, station with podcast, but suddenly we're going to do, I don't know, computer repair.
This cookware is really great, and let's do this recipe from the 1930s.
Right.
What? That's not the Psychic Coffee Shop. That's not Mountain Bears. What the hell are you doing? Not that you haven't done other content, not that we don't talk about other things. But the primary, and this even is like a next evolution.
It is
trying to get deeper into stories.
Well, not only that, but YouTube channels evolutionize. They grow. The content creators get sick and tired of doing the content they're doing. And, I love Peter Mon when he says, when you get tired of it, either switch veins or do something different. And that's what we're doing. But, I'm not telling you before the show, you better smile, you better do this, you better hit this cue. And remember to talk about Hay House and how great Hay House is, and use code Aeson at Hay House. We don't have a code Aeson at Hay House.
No, just calm down. I think there was
calm down your credit card banjo there.
Yeah, whatever. And I mean that's been a struggle for both of us. Like you really hate reviewing product that you don't like. And that's part of your whole thing is like, I will gladly review it.
Mm-hmm.
You get the review that you get.
Exactly.
I'm kind of over on like, on the tech side, I don't even like, I'm sorry, Amazon burned me on the like products that you would get, that you'd purchase. And then they'd have a follow-up and like the high pressure to leave a good review. And oh, by the way, we'll buy your good review and send you a free product when you post your 5-star review.
Right.
And I'm just sitting here going, so I'm trying to buy a product and I'm looking at reviews so that I don't get burned on the stuff that I'm buying. But then you're giving away products and like just hounding people for 5-star reviews.
Right.
And so you're just blowing up the whole thing.
Right.
So now it's one, I can't even trust your reviews for like Amazon products and that particular seller. But now I have to go reevaluate how I read reviews.
Exactly.
And start to like rethink what I'm thinking here. And so it's like I can't just look for the highest rated product and read 2 or 3 reviews and go, well, that must be pretty good.
Right.
I have to look through it again, like shift the lens. Is that like now I have to take it is like, does that sound like a real human being that's not trying to get free shit?
Right. But the other part of that, like there's a number of parts that I've gotten annoyed with. But no, like if you see me review something, I like it or I don't like it, and I'll tell you both. And that's books, and like we have had authors send me books, and I'm like, no, I ain't bringing you on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's been a couple.
Yeah, and then there's this cult mentality that came out of Connection that I've seen before.
Yeah, I do want to say with the authors, though, and some of that's come out of like having that moment with an author where it's like, what? Okay, well, thank you. Have a great evening. Like, I don't know what the hell this is, but okay.
Right. Like, or for them not to know bait. Like, I have a pretty well, with my master's in metaphysics, I have a pretty well handle on 98% of the metaphysical world.
Yeah, and like the publishers you're in contact with, most of them should be sending authors in that vein. Like you primarily work with like 2 different publishing companies. And granted, there's been some staff changeover, but like it's a pretty good relationship. They know what the show's about. They know who you're looking for, like what vein of stuff. Right. And typically, like the authors they send, they at least have a book in that vein.
Well, normally, and sometimes they send me other offers, and sometimes I like them. But they're like connections are trying to become the next Tony Robinson, the next what is that other one? Well, it's the male version of Susie Orman. What is his damn ass name?
Oh yeah, whatever. I can't remember. Dyer.
No, Wayne Dyer's is actually he's got really good writings. Snowball Dead.
Oh yeah.
Ramsey, Doug Ramsey.
There we go.
Right, which, you know, when someone starts quoting those two, my hairs jump on the back of my neck.
Yeah, because again, it all sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the Susie Orman hoax, if you want to call it that. Is all this sounds great. It's very authoritative. It's very opinionated. It's very convincing. Like they're great speakers,
right?
Like as a skill, and that's kind of where I'm at with Jody Hildebrand. Skill wise, that's where their talent is. They're very convincing.
Right,
Will convince you of whatever they're saying. Like, and whether that's psychological manipulation and tactics, if that's just their personality, like nat 20 charisma, okay?
Right.
Like, you know, gonna fail a deception check, but nat 20 on the charisma. Like maxed out, buffed.
Right.
They're really good at that, but then the underpinning of it when you start digging into it is like, this shit doesn't work.
Right.
That's not realistic.
Right.
And especially like on Susie Orman and Ramsey, both. This is nice if you're middle class and you legitimately have a spending problem. Does not work.
Right.
It's like, hi, I'm poor.
Right.
I'm just poor. I don't have a spending problem. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not, you know, and I'm trying.
Right.
Doesn't work. Because there's a presumption of a certain income level in which you're making choices.
Right.
And the choices you are making are bad, and you can make good ones. Versus like the poverty being poor problem, which is, I've come to just term it poor choices.
Right.
It's not that your choices are bad. It's that the option set you have, there are no good choices to be made. So yeah, but and I don't think financially that was really it.
Right.
Like they definitely made some money off of this, and I still can't believe they were only paying the kids like $10 a video.
Right.
Like that was the wild moment. Is the like she's sitting there trying to get like, especially the two older ones, to be like, you know, sit down, shut up, behave, or you know, who doesn't want to make $10?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, wait, that's how you're talking to your kids right now? Like, excuse me?
Right.
It was wild. Like, that part was wild to me.
Right. Like, well, a lot of it's just wild. Like, how? Like, how do you justify this in your mind? Leaving your 12-year-old out in the sun all day and refusing to give him water.
Well, that, I think, is the point where she was so far off the rails. There's no point in asking that question.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of micro moments before that when it's like, what?
Right.
It's like, how did you say that sentence? And your brain didn't, like, glitch out and go, this isn't right.
Right.
What you know what I mean? Like, how did you not have a moment later where your brain just kicked in and went, this isn't working. This isn't cool. This is like, how in the good motherhood does this coexist?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it sounds like my motivation isn't about being a good mother. It sounds like my motivation is views, likes, subscribes, higher net earnings, you know, click ratios, algorithms, and everything else. But it doesn't sound like good motherhood.
Right.
And ironically, my channel's about being the perfect mother.
Right.
For 8 children. And it's like,
you know,
that reservation.
Let's talk about this concept to begin with. I would love to see the perfect person. And what I mean by that is one that's like, we've gone through, no, I don't feel like cooking. No, I don't feel like getting up and doing shit. So I'm going to lay here on the couch and hubby can figure out dinner. Or, like I'm
Which
tired
side note was like, let's be transparent here.
Right.
That was literally this evening.
Yeah.
Because I knew better than to even ask. Like
right.
the drag ass on his face was you could feel it in other rooms. It's like,
right.
I'm toast.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so I'm cooking dinner, period. There's no discussion here.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't a question of, would you like me to cook dinner? It was a question of, are you about ready for dinner? If so, I'll start it.
Right.
So like, no, and that's reality. But that also kind of ties back to the docuseries and its whole thing on what, seriously, literal teaching apparently within the LDS is that this like perfectionism,
right,
is so baked in to the religion that no, its actual teaching is that they're supposed to be striving to be more perfect, constantly more perfect. Good, better, best, never let it rest until the good gets better and the better gets best. And just constantly at their soul's peril in the afterlife.
Right.
That's again, it's a pressure cooker. That it's like, and I kind of think in its worst or potentially worst version,
right?
Like, never underestimate the power of people to do worse. But the worst versions, is the Daybell case and the Ruby Frankie case of this, like, the push to be perfect, the push to be, don't let them see you sweat, to never come forward, and you're just living with it, and it's eating you and it's eating you and it's eating you. That, like in the Ruby Frankie case, that specifically stands out, that once this becomes unsustainable, it's not mommy had a bad day and slapped me. It's mommy went on a 6-month tour of torture.
Right.
Like, there's no middle ground here. There's no, oops, I shouldn't have done that. I'm, and beat myself up for the next 20 years while you go talk to your therapist about how much of a horrible mother I am because that one time I fucking slapped the piss out of you.
Right.
It's not that. It's overshoot. Like, it's to the moon. There's no middle ground. There's no Goldilocks zone. And I'm not saying there's ever a Goldilocks zone for child abuse. Do not hear that. I'm just saying that every parent has a moment that if they could take it back, if only they could take it back before the words came out of their mouth, but before their hand made contact, they knew. I'm out of control. I've lost control.
Right.
This is wrong. I'm in the process of fucking up.
Right.
And it's okay, I made a mistake. This was horrible. I'm never doing it again. I'm so sorry. That's real.
Right.
Like, there is not a parent in the world, nor should any parent necessarily feel unredeemable for that one moment that there is no amount of adulthood, parenthood, like your kid has just found the button that has pulled you apart, and in this one instance, in this one moment,
Right.
you lost control, and you just were not the parent.
Right.
You were a hurt, wounded human being, and you just snapped. I think every parent is going to have that. If you think you're never going to have it, it's going to happen. That is not a single instance. Is not what we're talking about. Can that be abusive? Absolutely. But is that like pervasive, severe, repetitive, in like child abuse?
Right.
No. Your parent lost it.
Right.
Like whatever that situation was, whatever else was going on, and that the other part of that is recognizing that in that moment,
right,
hooked up. And immediately recognizing it, not at the end of a court case with 5 counts of horrific child abuse that has gone on for months and years and whatever else, but literally recognizing in that moment, probably before you finish the action,
right,
I fucked up. Nope.
But see, that even happens in normal, like, dating relationships. There are points when it's like, oh shit, you fucked up. And you know you fucked up. You know. And it ain't ever getting
a lot of flack from like and it's not come up. Like, I'm not saying he's hit me. I'm not saying any of my exes have hit me. But I have a 1-hit rule. And I make that very clear at the beginning. Is you get to hit me 1 time. The second time you do it, you better mean it.
Right.
Because it's over. It's done. We're not doing this ever again.
Right.
And whatever you start in that moment, I will finish. You get 2 hits. The second one better land and land well. Like the first one, I'm going to go, that was a mistake. You whatever was going on, you lost it.
Right.
And I will forgive that one.
Right.
The second one, there's no forgiveness. There would be no forgiveness.
Right.
Like, nope.
Well, and see, I have different structural rules that's like, I'm done with that shit. You can go the fuck on now. But we both came on like, we ain't hitting on each other. I'm not having a barroom brawl just because you're in a fucking mood. Like, that don't fly with me. You know, but there was other situations and consequences that have come through relationships, but it's like, I don't play this anymore. I don't play this anymore. I don't play that anymore. And it was like, and I think you thought it weird, I negotiated our divorce before we even got into a serious relationship. It's like, this is how this ends.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was more so a surprise because I kind of think a lot of people struggle with that component, and I had not up until that point entered a relationship where that was a conversation topic. But I think for a lot of relationships, you kind of already know before you know.
Right.
You know what I mean? That like, this is how this, or you know along the way that like this has an expiration date and we're going to move it towards the exits. Right. And you start developing that, and to some degree, I think some of that is based on life experiences and things people go through and have been through, and what they're seeking to avoid.
Right.
You know, and experience is a great teacher.
Right.
And so I think it is why a lot of breakups are very like confusing. It's like there's sometimes elements of it that it's like, did I miss something? Like, this doesn't sound like a breakup. This sounds like an escape from long-term abuse.
Right.
Like, I didn't, like, and I've had that moment before, and I don't ask it because it's like, that is an inappropriate question. No one should be put on the spot for that. That's not,
Right.
Especially at the moment in which they're leaving. Like, do not start this like gaslighting thing, because it's what this question becomes. Is like, did I miss something? Was there physical abuse? Was there, emotional abuse? Was there, only to kind of process later, because it's like that person doesn't seem like, I can't see that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're acting like you're leaving an abuser, a severe, horrible, pervasive, repetitive abuser. But that's not who I know. And I understand totally that, like, anyone can be an abuser, and like, that's not a side of them you're going to see unless you're in a relationship. But it's like, for some people, it's like, oh, that makes sense. No. I could, yeah, I can follow that basketball. But then there have been times only to realize later that you find out that, like, their ex was the horrible abuser, not the current one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, however many exes back, they went through a horribly abusive situation, and they're like, no, this is my escape plan. It's totally different.
Right.
But I also want to comment that in that same vein, I do think that's a lot of what we see here also co-occurring, is that a lot of these, because of the way the LDS church is set up, because the way that, like, dating and relationships are handled, this is kind of a, like, meet, marry, and happily ever after. Like, there's no plan, nor experience with, like, failing relationships, getting out of abusive situations. Like, we will also have to kind of process that into this, is that, typically there's not a lot of, like, multiple relationships. It's very surface level, like, meeting and being chaperoned, and everyone's kind of angling towards marriage,
right?
And like, you're not moving in and shacking up, as my grandmother would have said, not living in sin, so there's not that same experience level,
right?
So we're not talking about, I want to be careful. I don't want to say we're not talking about competent relationship people.
Right.
You're not talking about competent breakup people.
Well, they're not. And then the other part of it, and the harder part of that, is this non-fracking community. And, like, that was Hildebrandt's kind of, like, eye in there, target in there. And, I think it's, I'll have to look up the name. Modern Mormon? Ex-Mormon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Mormon Stories podcast, and he talks about this a lot, and I'll share his channel because he was hot on this too. But that's what she was using as a weapon. Like, the church provided her the perfect weapon, because they're so afraid of, like, men seeing porn, or men being attracted to women, to other things, to having desires for anything other than the church. And I think that comes from it becoming so far down the rabbit hole.
Well, and it's more the perfectionism. But it also creates a lot of sheltering and a lot of, like, figure it out later. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, because I think being competent in relationships and more importantly at like knowing when your boundaries aren't respected, knowing when it's time to leave, knowing how to say, nope, this isn't for me. Thanks. Have a great day. Don't know what the hell you're doing, but I'm out. And the resilience experience, which is, I think, something that most people develop in their teenage years, and it's second nature. Like, you know, you're going to be fine if like this relationship ends. You know, you're okay without a spouse. You know that like you will be able to recover and that you know, all these things. And then actually having that you know, history of doing this more than once, versus a community that very much encourages, if not pretty much conscripts, the idea that like, no, this is a one-time event. You're gonna like meet your spouse one time, not as in the literal, but you're gonna meet the right person for you. You're going to go all the way to the finish line of marriage, and then you're going to be married, and then that's it.
Right.
And like, there's not a plan B. There's not, you know, and
or
so
C
not
or G.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, if your whole goal is to stay married, that's a really great environment to make that happen.
Right.
The problem with it is, it also allows situations to fester.
Well, it does.
And, like, you know, and get pulled in a very immature way. And to struggle in very immature ways that, like, you're not prepared for.
Right.
Because you can't just go, you know, I don't know what the hell your problem is, but I'm out.
Right.
Like, I didn't see this in 5 dates. I didn't see this in 5 months. I didn't see this in 5 years. Now we're here, and like, I don't know what this is, but I'm out.
Right.
Because, and that's a lot of how like relationships go. Is that you will hit a juncture, and you will have to go, you know, if there's other fish in the sea, I can get out of this pond. Like, excuse me, thank you, let me out. Because, you know, this is something that would not ordinarily have come up, but I don't want any part of it. Whereas if you are structurally, systemically told, like, once you're in, there's no get out of the car.
Right.
Like, you can't, you know, you are literally 8, you know, at this point, 8 passengers, and the doors are welded shut. Whatever cliff you're going off of, you're all going together.
Right.
Like, you're just, that's it. And it's not that there is no divorce. It's that it's such a, like, frowned upon doesn't even begin to describe it. It is just such a
rare
slash unforgivable occurrence. Like, you're broken and you're horrible, and it's because it's the crack of the perfectionism.
Right. And it has to go through the church. Okay. Like, the divorce doesn't go through the court system. It has to go through the church. And this is a larger problem because most of Utah's children's and affairs is ran by the Mormon church and funded by the Mormon church. You know, and if she's making all this money, and you know, this is one of their top therapists. I was really surprised the temple and the brethren did not come out with any statements about the Ruby Frankie case. And I think, if anything, this shows how dangerous a bad therapist is.
Well, it definitely shows that. And I think part of the problem with, like, you're never going to get answers from the LDS church on this. Their general tactic is ignore it till it goes away.
Right.
And strategically, that's purely rating the strategy, not the morality behind it. Strategically, that's not a horrible decision to make.
Right.
The reason being is that once you come forward and you talk about it, you've thrown a Pandora's box wide open. You don't know what all is going to come out of the woodwork with that. Like, everything you say is going to go under a microscope. You're going to get asked some really tough questions. You're going to have to explain yourself and what you knew, when you knew it, how you knew it, who told you that, why you didn't listen, why, there's all these couples that were trashing her, because it's not like Jodi Hildebrandt had a great reputation.
No, she didn't.
Like, LDS Church freaking loves her, and she's got some people that give her great referrals. But then you step outside of that world, and you go online, and this is what Sherry Frankie found, is, but there's a whole bunch of people that it's like, she's great if you want to blow up your marriage. She's great if you want to whatever. And it's always like a contradictory, like, she's not great. Like, it's very clear, like, she has an agenda, and it's not to keep you together. It's to do something else.
Right.
And I think that, and welcome to Mountain Bears. Then there's the whole aspect of what was, besides, make money, Jodi Hildebrandt's angle, and was intentional, because there's a lot of commentary made about, like, is Jodi Hildebrandt a lesbian? Were they involved in a sexual relationship on top of this very intimate friendship? Like, Ruby Frankie moved into her bedroom, then kicked Kevin out, and then
Ruby began the process to moving into Jodi Hildebrandt's home. And that's stated in her in Sherry Frankie's new book. That's one of the allegations that came out. And and she bases it off seeing candles in the bedroom and massage oil. And I mean, some of it's that, but I mean, just circumstantially, like, get rid of all of that, like, it doesn't matter. Not to me, but the part that starts to become a question was I'm trying to choose my words carefully. Oh, please.
Even if this was not a lesbian relationship, like, square on the nose, exactly what it was. Even if this is like 3 steps and a bottle of wine away from that, you know what I mean?
Right.
As in, you're too close. You're too close.
Right.
You have an ersatz marriage.
Right.
Like, you have an ersatz relationship. As in, it's not, but ultimately it's how it functions.
Right.
It's what it's doing. It's that level of dependency. Not that I'm saying every relationship should be codependent, and it's more signs of, like, the problems there. But it's that, like, ability to get there.
Right.
The like, you shouldn't be codependent upon your therapist. You shouldn't be sharing. You should not have your therapist living with you.
Right.
You shouldn't have been sharing a bedroom with your therapist, even if you think she's demonically possessed and, like, your presence is somehow, like, even if that's legit, like, that's not how, like, in case anyone had questions, that is not how therapists and, like, the therapist-patient relationship should ever work. Even if there's nothing sexual. Even if there's nothing sexual. That is a level of undue influence.
It is a high level of undue influence. And then the other part of me, and you were making a slip at the beginning of the show, and I'm like, we'll get to that part, is the closeness to her doctoring and what Chad Daybell was speaking.
Oh yeah, the whole demonic possession and what the hell?
Right.
Like, I mean, I kind of get your relationship or your religion itself is kind of, I don't want to say gone off the rails, but you've gone to some places. Like, you know what I mean? Like, lock the doors, people, lock the doors.
Right.
Like you're in some rough neighborhoods, in which everything that isn't you, is the devil.
Right.
Like, it starts to sound like I struggle not to laugh sometimes.
Right.
Because The Waterboy, Adam Sandler movie, one of the few Adam Sandler movies that I like, and I swear to God, Kathy Bates saved it. And Kathy Bates' characters, who I'm talking about, is like, it's this whole, it's the devil. It is what I keep hearing, and I want to laugh at points.
Right.
Because it's so, like, you watch the movie Waterboy, and it's hilarious for the fact that, like, that's the recurring, like, it's her whole catchphrase through the movie.
Right.
It's the devil. It's the devil. But then you watch, like, cases like this, and I know it's not funny. It's not funny.
Right.
But then you get into this weird conversational thing with the like the docuseries or the articles or whatever, and it's like, it sounds like that kind of like mentality. Yeah. Like, you've left the plane of ordinary people.
Right.
And just everything's the struggle of good versus evil and, you know, demonic possession.
But we're seeing that a lot out of the Christian dogma right now.
And it's like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Like, is this, I mean, clearly it's how you're thinking, but it's like getting subscribed to things that it's like, if that's demonic possession, like, I don't think I have a family member that has not been, at least momentarily, demonically possessed.
Which is so fucking rare to begin with.
Okay? Kissing girls. What the fuck? That's demonic possession? Like, Jesus Christ, raise your threshold.
Right.
Like, you know, maybe make something fly around the room before we go throwing the demonic possession label around.
Oh, please. You know, if somebody's going to get thrown or
as a bare minimum threshold,
okay,
throw something across the room. Then we'll talk about demonic possession. Spit some pea soup. We'll talk some demonic possession.
Well, all right, I'll take the pea soup one, because throwing stuff against the wall, that's quite easy, especially if you get enough emotional, what's the word I'm looking for?
Charge.
Constipation going on.
There you go.
All right. So there's that. There's those two things. I want to see what happens to this RICO case, because apparently Connections has gone on. You know, their CEO and their right-hand public service officer, mental trainist, is in jail, but the organization, the cult, is still operating. I want to see what happens to this RICO case.
I mean, never let a good cult go to waste. I mean, what the hell?
Well, I think that it's just they've drunk so much Kool-Aid.
Well, more to the point, where, like, I could almost understand if this is the original group of people. Like, you're just so far in that, like, nothing is going to pull you out. I get that. I don't like that, but I get that. But, like, if you're still drawing people in, like, is there a deficiency in news services? Or is this literally how the LDS community works? That all this is fake, all this is manufactured, they're just coming after people from the church, like this, you know, the government.
Right.
Is that where the whole community mentality is? Because I would think you would have to still be attracting clients,
Right.
new paying clients, to keep this moving.
Right.
And so I really struggle with the idea, and I know that's probably why you're like, will the LDS Church please approach the podium?
Yes.
And go, get out.
Yes.
In the strongest commandment from God voice they can muster, get out.
Yes.
Of connections. Get away from Jody Hildebrandt, her teachings, her whatever. Get out.
Right.
Or and I know that's what you want. I don't think we'll ever see it. But more to the point, is this how deep it runs?
Right.
That's the only way you're gonna address this, because it's the Kool-Aid isn't connections. The Kool-Aid is literally in the water supply of Utah.
Possibly. I mean, because we the people are still operating.
And I mean that proverbially.
Yeah. Which for those that don't know, and I don't know, Brenda, Devin, if you're guys, I know you guys are watching, the third person watching, comment. Do we need to take on the Daybell case? And go deeper into that, or have that been, read to you so much you could probably quote how to create a porter in your bedroom?
I don't know. I think that's like our genesis for doing these, because we kept just digging into Daybell so many times, because it's like, it was one of those that every time you turn around, it's like, oh my God, the rabbit hole has rabbit holes that have rabbit holes.
That has rabbit holes.
Yeah, it's just deeper. Like, where does it end? And that's sort of where the Ruby Frankie thing is
right.
In connections and Jody Hildebrandt, and every time you turn around, it's like, right. I think I understand the story.
Right.
Brenda's good with skipping it. Devin's like, maybe. Yeah, no, I can understand that. We're personally, I think I'm kind of there with it.
Personally, I just want to see what happens in Arizona. We'll talk about what happens in Arizona. Hopefully he gets the death sentence and we move on.
Yeah, we'll take 15, 20, 30 minutes on that one.
Exactly.
So, and then that'll book in that one and off to the shelf. Hopefully there will never be any more.
But, if we look at it, connections is still going on. We the people, which is the extreme organization that Daybell came out of, is still going on. And then Lou Rowe is still in business. Matter of fact, I can order new leggings if I wanted to.
Yeah,
does these cults never end?
And I guess this is how we can prove that, Sister Wives isn't a cult, because they can't keep a business going.
Well, I don't know.
Sorry.
No,
cheap shot.
I think that we may be hitting the shelf life of Sister Wives. Now, we may see Going On or Tatter Farms or something else picking up out of that, as a spinoff, but Cody's done.
Yeah, well, and Brendan makes a good point. There's always a new cult, and that's the saddest part of the reality. Is because it's cults speak to people.
Yeah,
they really do. They will totally pick up the most disenfranchised people. It's a lot of how this works.
Right,
people who are just ground down, broken. Give me something.
Right.
This ain't it. Right. And I've run out of clues how to push.
Right.
Give me something.
Right.
And there's just, so to speak, a market, and it's a big one, of people who are just sick of it.
Right.
Of the struggle, of the questions, of the just they're give me something.
Right.
Because this can't be it. The disillusionment, the
right.
Whatever. like all of it, everything. It does prime people
Right.
to be cult accepting, especially when you combine that with, there are a percentage of people in the world who can be the front of a cult because they have the necessary abilities.
Right.
To they don't have a moral problem with preying on broken people.
Right.
It's lucrative. It often also co-fulfills, and especially with a lot of cults, co-fulfills some. I'm trying not to say the word deviant sexual needs, because that's not exactly it, but it is. You know what I mean? Like,
I know
I'm
what
not
you
trying
mean.
to label, like, being a lesbian isn't deviant in and of itself, but for them, for that community, this may be the way you do that. Is you've got to wrap it up in, like, this isn't sexuality, this is God.
Well, and see the other part there, and this is the part that made no sense to me. Wanting your partner higher than what they thought you should was seen as a bad thing. And I'm like, do you know how many dead marriages, dead bedrooms out there of couples that are just existing occurs, 3, 5, 7 years in? And it's like, if a couple 15 years in are still hot for each other, there's something to look at.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that, like, we've really got to normalize the idea that, like, no, all relationships it's gonna come in waves. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you get stressed out at work, you got too much crap going on, like, it's gonna ebb and flow.
Right.
Like, it's just is.
Right.
It's also supposed to take on new dimension because, quite frankly, new relationship energy is called new relationship energy for a reason, because it primarily happens in new relationships. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. You're not going to 20 years in have new relationship energy level of interaction. Like, unless you're on 51st dates and you both have a memory disorder.
Well, I don't know.
Like, you just...
there are some. I will give it to you. There are some couples out there that it's interesting because I get I'll sit and watch them, and this is one of my most interesting things: watching a couple first meet and they're kind of like lukewarm for each other, and then they get all hot. And there are some couples that just keep fucking burning like a diesel fire, and I'm like, okay, let's take some notes here.
Well, see, that's always what worries me. Is some of those couples, like, I don't think that's the green flag people thinks it is. You know what I mean? I think or may not necessarily be a red flag.
Right.
I'm just saying there's a potentiality that like, it's not a problem with the sex or the attraction or whatever, but like, some of the people that have that, like, there's other issues going on, and, like, that is a positive benefit of the other issues, but it's like, are the other issues worth it?
Right. And see, those are debatable terms and things that go occur. But, we're going to wrap this up. Do you want to do Are You the Asshole? Because if so, I've got one for you.
Oh, yeah, let's go ahead and go for it. Any last words, though, on the Frankie thing, real quick?
Be very careful whose Kool-Aid, whose Cheerios you're eating. Like, this was very bad. But I see it happening a lot in the New Age world too. There are some people that still eat some Cheerios, and it's like, that ain't the best bowl of food. It's moldy. It's green.
All right. I think for me, if I have last words, I would love for anyone related, connected, to ever see this. And if you watch nothing else of anything I've ever said, please hear these words. Will you please? I know how much it means for you to have, compliance and adherence by your people in your religion. But can you please make an inroad somewhere to teach your congregants how to date, what relationships are, and when you cross the line?
Mm-hmm.
Can you please? Because this is the common denominator we just keep seeing happening, is that there's a relationship and a lot of ineptitude with relationships and knowing where boundaries are and what boundaries are and how to maintain boundaries and when there's a hard limit and things like that. Can you please teach them that? Thank you so much. That's my soapbox. Welcome to my TED Talk. Good, All right. So am I the asshole for complying with my company setup policy? I, female 38, recently started a part-time second job that is remote. In my industry, this is very rare, and I want to keep my foot in the door for the experience and possible full-time position down the road. I already have a full-time, well-paying job that is not remote. Part of getting this job requires using the equipment they send me. One of the items is two 32-inch screens. My husband, 39 male, is extremely angry about this. We live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, so the screens would take up a lot of space. He is mad that they are taking up so much real estate for a job that is 2 to 3 shifts a month. Since the desk is in the second bedroom, is right by a window, he is mad that they will be blocking the window and he has to see them every time he passes by the bedroom. He wants them gone. I tried to tell my company that the monitors are too big, but they essentially told me it's either I have the monitors as part of my setup or I'm fired. I don't want to get fired when I just got started over something I feel is incredibly petty. He wants me to quit over this, and I said I will do my best to accommodate the screens, but I don't want to quit. Am I the asshole?
No. Your husband, however, is.
What? I'm what?
Yeah.
Like,
put him behind the TV.
I mean, dude, OP husband, deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Deal with it. Get over it. Find a way to get over it. Close the door to the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stop looking at them. If you hate these monitors so much, close the door.
Or better yet, go get a job so she doesn't have to work that second job.
That might be nice. Look, what?
Yeah.
Why, this is the hill you've chosen to die on. Like, I feel like there's like another half of this story.
Right.
Because if it's this, like, this is the hill you chose to die on. This is the thing you have decided. Like, this is my mission in life, is I want them gone.
Mm-hmm.
Really, man?
Mm-hmm.
So in speaking of who's the asshole, hubby it's got to be more than the screens that has him doing that. Like, that's what my thought is. That's why I think, like, what is his perspective? Like, what is it? Like, mm-hmm. I get that it's annoying. Like, I could see a minor annoyance creeping up for me if, like, we have to give up a, chunk of the living room for something you do a couple times a month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I sort of see that.
Right.
But not at the level of, like, this is my mission in life. I might, every time I walk past that spot in the living room, be like, ugh. but it's not going to be enough for me to even like register a conversation.
Right.
Like, is it hurting me? No. Is it, does it have a positive benefit for you or an intended positive benefit for you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Suck it up and deal, dude. Like, what are you for?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, do you have a 4-year-old's mentality? Like, you just can't, like, are you having all the big feelings? Do we need to take a time out? Like, I'm not trying to, like, be a jackass here, but what is your problem?
Right.
So,
Well,
not the asshole. That's my official vote.
Mine is not the asshole. All right. So let's go ahead and hop in. We do have, I think it's relationship advice.
Well, it's Ask Gay Bros over 30. This is in the 40 to 44 band. How to respond after a 3-week ghosting. I matched with a guy on February 2nd. We had a pretty good back and forth convo until February 6th. He didn't reply to my last message. I sent a follow-up on February 8th to no reply. Then today, February 25th, he replies saying, sorry, I've been MIA. How are you? Should I ask him why he was MIA or just move on? The first thought I had is he connected with someone else. It didn't work out. And now he's coming back to the well, which doesn't feel great. He is cute and I wouldn't mind getting to know him better, but I don't know. LOL. What would you do?
Hi, stranger. How are you? And move on.
This may be the weirdo advice. Like, I think we make a lot out of ghosting and being someone's like second choice. And it's like, y'all are talking on an app for a few days. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
at least he remembered he had a conversation with you.
Yeah. I think all that glitters isn't gold. And I think that's what the person you're talking to potentially found out, is that like someone else sounded better, looked better on an app, seemed better on an app, got a little interested and moved towards the person they were talking to. I think you're right on that. I think trying to like get your validation through an app is probably like, who hurt you?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm sorry. I see talking to people and matching with them on an app is kind of like test driving a car. It's not even test driving the car. It's kicking the tires and, trying to flag down a salesman.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's seeing the cool ad on television and on YouTube and whatever for the new car that looks really cool. And so you're interested. That's it. You don't have your financing together. You're not sure if you're going to buy it. You're not, like, you might go on a couple of test drives before you figure all that out. Then you got to work out the financing and the insurance and the, all the things.
Right.
That's the point in, so to speak, the buying process that I see apps at.
Right.
Getting this bent over like, well, I talked to him and then he disappeared. So what should I do now? Should I just like, pretend he doesn't exist? Like, and then be mad that like he, chose me second?
Right.
I'm sorry, all of us are a second or a third or a 33rd or 133rd or 2033rd choice.
Right.
To someone.
Right.
That doesn't devalue you. That, like, this gets into that whole like chewing gum used up bullshit.
Right.
That, sometimes you just gotta kiss a lot of frogs.
Right.
Before you realize, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it doesn't guarantee this is where they're supposed to be. It doesn't guarantee you're gonna go out and like this is the end of the fairy tale.
Right.
May also be your frog too. But really, this is like what you want to like roll the dice on? Like, if he does it multiple times, yeah, I totally get behind the idea of like this is gonna happen.
Right.
You know, like I apparently glitter a little for you, but I am not your goal.
Right.
Like whatever you're looking for, it's not me.
Right.
I get that. Like if you have multiple attempts and it just keeps going this way, I don't know what they're looking for. It's not you. Move on. I back that play. But one time, like,
yeah,
do you ask? I
would. You're not at that level.
No, I don't think you are.
No.
You've had a few days of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think that there's also a small potential that this might be like a screening.
Mm-hmm.
And not so much for you, OP, particularly, but maybe for someone who keeps rushing into relationships. It's kind of that moment of when you see people that have a problem shopping habit. Like they're constantly putting stuff in the cart, and then they're like, I don't know how I spent like $5,000 this month. And it's like, you buy every fucking thing you touch. You constantly go shopping. You cannot walk out of a store without buying stuff. You pick up everything, and you do not think about it before you leave.
Right.
Sometimes you just have to look at your cart and be like, not today.
Right.
And then you have to get comfortable as a next step with like, I looked at it on the shelf. I picked it up. I read about it. I'm kind of interested. I'm going to let that, I'm going to let that percolate in my brain. I think if you're dealing with someone, especially that is trying to relationship, not hook up, if they're trying to get into a relationship, support this. This is someone trying to not rush. That is not trying to go from met on the app on February 2nd to moved in on March 2nd.
Right.
This is someone who is taking their time and going, let's not be impulsive.
Right.
I could see it that way and be totally back that for the person you're talking to. Is if they're into a bunch of relationships, got really wrapped up in the conversation, let's go on a date. They go on a couple of dates. And then next thing you know, it's 3 years later, and what the hell are we doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again. All right. Let's check the poll.
Yeah. How are we polling?
Ooh, we polled well.
Ooh.
No, you are not the asshole for using your company's setup.
No. Or making space for it, or devoting real estate for it. Like,
yeah.
If it becomes takes over the whole house, and like this is all you got is like one work setup and another work setup and another work setup, and for jobs that you're like, well, I do like this one for like 2 hours a month, and I do this one for okay. I understand being like, we gotta talk about this. Like, you cannot have 32 monitors and 18 computers and 4 laptops and what are you doing?
Exactly.
That would be extreme. I could totally be like, we have lost a whole room of our house to this, and like, I don't know what you're doing. This makes no sense. It seems excessive. Like, they're not Pokemon, they're jobs, okay? Like, let one go.
Well, if we would flash back, let's take the Wayback Machine to the early 2000s. Yeah, my desk would take up this whole room.
No.
Because I had 6 computers around me.
But you were actively working them.
Yeah, every one of them.
That's different. That's different. Like if you're using this one like 2 days a month,
Mm-hmm.
and you're using this other one for like 2 or 3 days a month, and you're using this one for like another like day.
Right.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, let it go.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need this. Like, figure out what you need to figure out and then either move in that direction or let it go.
Yeah.
Like, that would, like, I could see that conversation. So either they hate this job entirely.
Right.
Or, like, I don't get what their problem is. Like, if we're talking about one setup for one part-time occasional gig,
right,
get over it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could see a conversation in a year. But this is recent, so they say. I don't know what recent means, but let's assume the last couple of months. If you're still a year in, if you get to a year in this and this is all you're doing with it, quit.
If you can afford to.
Well, it doesn't sound like that's exactly why they have this, though.
Right.
This is like, it could be a good future job. It might be something I'm really into. It could lead my career. Maybe, if I really like it. If it's, okay, like if you're gaining valuable experience, sure. But if you're a year down the road and it's like you're not really, like, what are you doing? Like, ask yourself in a year, what am I doing?
Right.
Why is this here? What am I really getting out of it? Is it worth it? That, after a year, I could see having a moment and being like, have you figured out what you want to do when you grow up yet? Like, is this it?
All right.
And then how do we move you in that direction? Like, is that possible with this company? Do you need to go somewhere else, interview somewhere else? Are you giving up the first job to do that? Like, what are you doing? I mean, that conversation I can see. But if you're talking like a month or two in, or 3 even.
Right.
Ugh, get over it, dude.
Yeah.
Like, most people go through hobbies that take up more space, more resources, and are more annoying than a couple of monitors and a computer in the corner of a bedroom.
Exactly.
Like, some of y'all don't have ADHD people in your life. You have never seen anything taken apart in the middle of a living room before. And just had a moment of like, okay, this is our life now. And I'm not saying that about Aeson. I'm really not. I mean that in like my own family has horror stories. Like, there would not have surprised me in the least if I like randomly come home and there's like a disassembled motorcycle in our living room. I would just be like, this is our life now. This is what we do. Okay.
Well, aren't you glad that I don't do mechanical work? It ruins my manicure.
But you get my point.
Right.
Is like, there's this thing with ADHD and interest that at some point, it's not just a corner of a bedroom. It's going to take over the house. It's just what we do now. Says the cricket guy. Hey, I didn't go that crazy. I really didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. It's contained. It is literally in the corner of a bedroom.
I know.
Like,
you do really well with your stuff. So
yeah, it's contained.
Right.
It did not. And what I mean, and I mean this, and I mean it sincerely, is there is a moment with ADHD, and those of you who have dealt with people who are ADHD, you know what I'm talking about. You know it. A sudden new interest will go from something you've never heard about to something that now takes over a room or a house. And a blink of an eye.
True.
Like, God forbid you leave for the weekend, it is going to explode.
Right.
And you will come back and it is just eat, sleep, and breathe. And it's the hyper focus, and I get it. I'm used to it. I've seen it. I've like dealt with it, whatever. In my family, it used to be whatever was currently taking over the garage.
Right.
Was it bullet making? Was it woodworking? Was it welding? Was it a race car? Was it a race bike? Was it a race go-kart? Was it?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I were kidding. I am not.
Right.
Quite frankly, my dad lost a job right before I was born. Do you know what took over our entire house before he found a new one? Train set. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then he got a job. It moved to the basement. Did not see the light of day for about 20 years. Just sat there and decayed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I say I know. Like, if Mom could have gotten rid of that thing, I give my dad credit. He did some really good, like, industrial building on that platform. Right. Because it was too big for Mom to disassemble.
Right.
Like, she was not getting that out of the house by herself.
Right.
But it consumed him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. Also, one of the points I think my parents, my dad and I struggled, because he would have that kind of hyper focus. I do not typically.
Mm-mm.
Like, it takes a lot. But anyway, all right.
Yeah, but my hyper focuses are normally digital. Thank you. And I don't take things apart. Yeah.
You don't typically take things apart. Now, you will put things together like quilts.
Exactly.
I will say that he bought a sewing machine and made 3 quilt tops?
3 quilt tops. And
yeah.
I haven't had time to get back to it yet.
I know, but what I'm saying is,
mm-hmm.
it took over a corner of a living room. There was fabric everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's okay. That's cool. Like, I just came home and went, yep, okay, that's what we're doing now. All right, got it.
And after I finish my construction project, I may have a quilting table in here.
Yeah, it got packed up.
Mm-hmm.
It's been packed up. Like, I'm not mad. This is not a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
This is me saying, like,
mm-hmm.
I get it.
All right. Well, if you get it, take it away, Vanna.
All right. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Brenda, Joan Owen, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Caitlin Bell, Devin, and Bella. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Yes. All right, guys. We will see you later. Bye, y'all.
Bye.